never thought fire could sound like a scream, but that night, it did. It screamed through the walls of my home, the only place that ever knew my laughter, my tears. My husband's voice. Before he passed, by the time the sirens arrived, my memories were already ashes. I remember standing barefoot in the driveway, watching everything I'd built curl up into black smoke against the night sky. The neighbors came running, faces glowing orange from the flames, whispering things like, "Oh my God, Grace, and is anyone still inside?" I couldn't speak. I couldn't even cry. I just kept staring at the window where my son's baby pictures used to hang. They melted before my eyes, frame by frame, like time itself was punishing me for believing I was safe. When the firefighters finally said the words, "It's all gone, Mum," something inside me went silent. Not broken, just silent. I didn't have insurance that would cover everything. My husband, Daniel, handled those things before he died. After that, I just tried to survive month to month. The house was old, but it was mine. It was all I had left of him. That night, I slept in the back seat of my car, wrapped in a blanket that still smelled like smoke. The air was freezing and every breath hurt. But the real pain wasn't from the fire. It was from not knowing where I belonged anymore. By morning, I did what any mother would do when she has nowhere else to go. I drove to my son's house. His name is Michael, 30 years old, married, 2 kids, a good job. The kind of man I thought I'd raised right. The drive to his home was long and quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like it's listening to you think. All the way there, I kept replaying the moment the house went up in flames. The way the light had swallowed the front porch, the sound of cracking glass. The way I whispered my husband's name as if he could save me one more time. When I pulled into Michael's driveway, I sat there for a moment, trying to gather the courage to knock. It wasn't pride that held me back, it was fear that I'd become a burden. I saw movement in the window, Michael's wife, Lauren, holding a coffee mug, glancing out. Then calling for him. When he opened the door, his face changed the second he saw me. "Mom," he said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" His voice wasn't angry, just unprepared. I told him everything, the fire, the night, how I'd lost everything. He stood there, rubbing the back of his neck, eyes darting to his wife, then back to me. Finally, he said, "You should have called first." That sentence, those 4 words, cut deeper than the fire ever could. Lauren came closer, her smile polite but uneasy. "Oh my God. Grace, that's awful. I'm so sorry. Come in, come in." Her tone was sweet, but her eyes said, "Don't stay too long." Inside, everything was perfect. The kind of home where candles matched the curtains and nothing was out of place. It smelled like cinnamon and warmth, everything my house used to feel like. I sat on the couch, holding a mug of coffee I didn't drink. Michael kept pacing, talking about logistics. "Maybe we can get you into a motel for a few days. I'll check some options. Or maybe Aunt Rachel has room." I stared at him, waiting for him to say the words, "You can stay here, Mom." But they never came. He was standing 2 feet away. But I had never felt so far from him in my life. When I finally spoke, my voice was small. "Michael, I don't need much, just a few nights until I figure things out." He hesitated, looked at Lauren, and she, with that soft, rehearsed kindness, said, "Of course, Grace. We'll figure something out, something, not this." Later that night, while they figured something out, I sat in the guest room, if you could call it that, a small space filled with storage boxes and old coats. I watched the shadows move across the walls, and for the first time since the fire, I cried. Not because I'd lost my home, but because I'd realized the truth. Sometimes the people you raise grow into strangers, and the fire doesn't always come from the flames outside. Sometimes it's born inside the people you love. That night, as I lay awake in that cold little room, I whispered to myself, something's not right here. Not with Michael, not with how he looked at me, and I didn't know it then. But the truth behind that look would burn hotter than any fire I'd ever seen. Morning sunlight poured through the blinds, but it didn't feel warm. It felt like light that didn't want to touch me. I woke up on a fold-out cot, surrounded by cardboard boxes, the smell of dust mixing with my cold coffee from the night before. I could hear laughter through the wall, my grandchildren running down the hallway. Their voices made my chest ache with something I couldn't name: love, guilt, distance. All tangled together. Lauren's knock came soft but sharp. "Grace, you awake?" "Yes," I said. My voice sounded smaller than I remembered. She peeked in with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Breakfast's ready." "Michael's already left for work." I nodded, pretending not to notice the hesitation in her tone, the kind you use when a guest has overstayed her welcome. Downstairs, the kitchen was bright and modern, marble counters, white cabinets, the faint hum of a dishwasher. Lauren moved gracefully around, her robe tied perfectly, hair flawless. Even at 8 a.m. she placed a plate in front of me, scrambled eggs and toast. She said, "I hope that's okay." "It's perfect," I whispered, even though my stomach wasn't ready for kindness that felt rehearsed. The silence between us stretched thin. Finally, she said it, too casually. So, what are your plans now? My fork froze midair. I'm not sure yet. Oh, of course, she said, sipping her coffee. It's just, you know how hectic things are with the kids and Michael's work. We're happy to help. But maybe you could check with the Red Cross or something? They might assist with housing after what happened. After what happened, she couldn't even say fire. I smiled politely. The kind of smile that hides 1,000 cracks. I'll figure something out, I said. I spent that afternoon sitting on the back porch while the wind played with the trees. The world looked calm, a cruel contrast to how I felt inside. My phone buzzed with messages from neighbors offering sympathy, but not one from my son. He didn't call, not even once. When he returned home that evening, I was still on the porch, watching the sunset turn the sky gold and red, the same colors that had devoured my house. Hey, Mom, he said, setting down his briefcase. Long day for you or me? I asked softly. He smiled awkwardly. Both, I guess. Then he cleared his throat, the way people do before saying something they know will hurt. Lauren told me you're thinking of other arrangements. I looked at him, studying his face. The same face I'd kissed goodnight for 18 years. The same eyes that once searched for me in the crowd during his school plays. Michael, I said. I haven't made any plans yet. I lost everything yesterday. I just need a few days to breathe. He rubbed his temples, avoiding my eyes. I know, we didn't expect this. The kids are already asking questions. It's been overwhelming. That word echoed like smoke in a closed room. I could feel something shifting, something cold. It wasn't about space, it was about something else, something deeper. Do you remember? I asked quietly, when your father died, how I worked double shifts to keep us in that house. How I said you'd always have a home with me. He looked away. That was different, was it? He didn't answer. Lauren appeared again, saving him from the weight of his silence. We've been talking, Grace, she began, her voice soft as silk, and we think it might be best if we find a temporary place for you. Just until you get back on your feet. The air went still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. I swallowed hard, nodding slowly. Of course, I said. I wouldn't want to be in the way. She smiled in relief, and patted my shoulder as if she'd just done something noble. You're so understanding. Michael will help you find something first thing tomorrow. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the rain start to fall. Thin lines gliding down the glass like ghosts. I thought of the fire, how it had taken everything, but left me alive. And I wondered why. Maybe survival wasn't a blessing, maybe it was a message. Something about the way Michael avoided my eyes, the tension in his jaw, the way Lauren kept steering the conversation. It didn't sit right. I whispered to myself, he's hiding something. I didn't know what it was yet, but I could feel it, like a splinter under the skin, and deep down, I knew one thing for sure. The fire had burned my house, but something else, someone was trying to erase me. The next morning, I woke to the sound of birds and the low hum of the coffee maker downstairs. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I saw the cardboard boxes, the folded cot, and the familiar ache returned like an old wound. Lauren's voice floated up the stairs. Grace? Coffee's ready. If you want some. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. No new messages, no calls. Just silence. My house had burned down 48 hours ago, and my only child still hadn't asked how I was really doing. Downstairs, Michael sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through his phone while Lauren packed lunches for the kids. He looked up and smiled when he saw me, that careful, polite smile people wear when they're avoiding guilt. Morning, Mom, he said. Sleep okay? I slept, I replied. That's something. He chuckled lightly, but his eyes flickered away. There it was again, that tiny, almost invisible crack in his smile. Lauren placed a mug in front of me. Here you go, almond milk, no sugar. I remember, thank you, I said, though the coffee tasted like distance. After breakfast, the kids ran out the door, their backpacks bouncing behind them. Lauren followed soon after, leaving me alone with my son. Michael adjusted his tie, glancing toward the window. Mom, listen. I've been thinking about what we talked about last night. Oh? Yeah, there's a senior housing complex near Millstone Drive. Really nice place. Independent living. Just temporary, you know, until insurance sorts things out. I stared at him. You already checked? He hesitated. Yeah, actually, I drove by this morning before work. Before even asking me how I was. That was thoughtful, I said quietly, but, Michael, I haven't even talked to the insurance company yet. I don't know what's covered, or what caused the fire. It's all still a blur. He tightened his grip on his coffee mug. Mom, you need to focus on what's next. The past is gone. The past is gone. The word stung, heavy and sharp. I'm not sure the past agrees with you, I said softly. It has a way of showing up when you least expect it. He gave a dry smile. You always did talk like that. After he left for work, I sat there for a long time, staring at the steam curling from my mug. Something wasn't right, not about him, not about the fire. When I finally gathered my things to head into town, Lauren stopped me by the door. "Oh, Grace, before you go, please don't use the guest shower again tonight. The drain's been acting up." Her voice was sugar, but her eyes were steel. I smiled. "Of course, dear. I'll stay out of your way." Outside, the autumn air hit my face like a cold reminder of reality. I borrowed Michael's car. He'd left it in the driveway with a full tank, almost as if to make up for something he couldn't say. The insurance office smelled like paper and coffee. The agent, a gray-haired man named Cooper, glanced through my file with furrowed brows. "Strange." He murmured. "What is?" I asked. He flipped a page. "It says here your policy was modified last month. Coverage for fire damage reduced, payout delayed for revaluation." My stomach dropped. "Modified? I never changed anything." He frowned. "Says the change was authorized by a co-owner." Michael Whitmore. For a second, I forgot to breathe. "My son?" I whispered. He looked up. "Yes, ma'am." "Is that a problem?" I forced a smile, the same fake one Lauren had mastered. "No, I just didn't realize he'd done that." I left the office in a daze. The wind had picked up, tossing yellow leaves across the parking lot. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. He changed my policy. A month before the fire. Coincidence? Maybe, but my gut said otherwise. That night, dinner felt colder. The kids were laughing. Lauren was talking about school events, and Michael, he just sat there, eating quietly, avoiding my eyes. "So," I said finally, "I visited the insurance office today." His fork froze halfway to his mouth. "Oh, yes, they said you made changes to my policy." The air went still. Lauren's smile faltered. "Oh, that," he said quickly, forcing a laugh. "Yeah, I just updated some contact info. You always forget to check your mail, Mom." "Funny," I said. "Because the man there said you reduced my fire coverage." He set his fork down, his jaw tightening. "That's not what he meant. You must have misunderstood." I leaned forward, my voice calm. "Michael, are you sure that's all it was?" He pushed back from the table. "Mom, this isn't the time. Can we not do this in front of the kids?" Lauren jumped in, smiling too wide. "Grace, honey, let's just enjoy dinner. Everyone's exhausted." I nodded slowly, my heart pounding. "You're right," I said. "We're all just tired." But inside, something had cracked wide open. And through that crack, the truth was starting to shine through. Later that night, I stood in the hallway outside Michael's office. The door was slightly ajar, light spilling into the dark corridor. I could hear voices, low, urgent. "Not meant for me." Lauren's whisper. "She's starting to ask questions." Michael's reply. "Then we need to handle it fast." I froze. The word handle echoed in my head, each syllable colder than the last. In that moment, I realized the fire might not have been an accident. And my son, my only son, might not have been the person I thought he was. The house was silent. Too silent. Even the refrigerator hum felt loud enough to expose my heartbeat. After what I'd overheard, "We need to handle it fast," I couldn't unhear it. I lay in bed pretending to sleep while my mind raced in circles. Every memory of Michael, every smile, every "I love you, Mom" twisted into something darker. By midnight, the house had gone still. Lauren's laughter had faded upstairs. The kids' soft breathing echoed down the hallway, and I got up barefoot, careful not to creak the floorboards. I stepped out of the guest room and down the hall toward Michael's office. The door was locked. Of course it was. But Michael had always been predictable, and I knew his habits like I knew my own heartbeat. When he was 16, he used to lock his bedroom door the same way. Back then, it was to hide cigarette packs and report cards. Now, I wasn't sure what he was hiding. I walked to the kitchen, opened the drawer by the fridge. And there it was, the old set of house keys he'd tossed in there weeks ago. I found one marked with a blue tag, "Office." My fingers trembled as I turned the key. The lock clicked open. Inside, the room smelled like cologne and printer ink. The computer screen glowed faintly, still on sleep mode. I moved quietly to the desk, scanning the mess, receipts, papers, unopened mail. Then I saw it. A folder labeled Whitmore Claim, Fires. My chest tightened. I opened it and my breath caught. Inside were printed emails between Michael and an insurance agent. One from 3 weeks before the fire. "Reduce coverage to standard liability only. We're planning renovation. Don't want full value yet. Signed, M. Whitmore." Renovation? I'd never agreed to any renovation. And then, another email. 2 days before the fire, confirm effective date for reduced coverage, September 10th, confirmed. The fire happened September 12th. I covered my mouth, trying not to make a sound. My son had planned this. For what? Money? Debt? I kept reading. There was another document, a bank letter. It mentioned a loan default. Michael was $180,000 in debt. And right below it, a note written in his handwriting, "Mom's policy can clear most of it. Temporary fix, my knees went weak." He'd planned to use my home, my life, to pay off his debt. I heard footsteps. I froze. The floorboard outside the office creaked, then stopped. I quickly slid the papers back, locked the drawer, and turned off the light. Lauren's voice came from behind the door. "Michael, you awake?" I swallowed hard, then quietly slipped into the shadow behind the curtain. She opened the door halfway, whispering, "You can't keep those papers here. What if she finds them?" Michael's voice was groggy, annoyed. "She won't. She's half asleep most of the time. Still," she said. "Tomorrow, you need to take them to the office. We can't risk her seeing." He cut her off. "Lauren, relax. It's handled." I waited until she left before I slipped out. Heart pounding so hard I thought the walls could hear it. Back in my room, I sat on the edge of the cot, staring at the floor. My son, my only family, had burned down my home. Tears came, but not the kind that fall easily. They came slow and heavy like ash after a fire. For hours, I sat there in silence. Until one thought began to grow, slow, deliberate, unstoppable. If he thought I'd be his victim, he didn't know me at all. The next morning, I played my role. I smiled. I thanked Lauren for the coffee. I hugged my grandkids before school. But beneath that calm mask, something had changed. I wasn't the same woman who came begging for help. I was a woman who had just lost everything and now had nothing left to lose. When Michael left for work, I waited exactly 15 minutes before I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "Detective Ramirez," came a deep voice on the line. "Ramirez," I said. My voice steady. "It's Grace Whitmore." He paused. "Grace, it's been a long time. I heard about the fire. I need your help." I interrupted. "And I need you to keep this between us." He hesitated. "What's going on?" "I think my son said it," I said quietly. "And I have proof." Silence. Then, "Grace, are you sure about this?" I took a deep breath. I wish I wasn't. That evening, Ramirez came by pretending to be an insurance follow-up. He wore plain clothes and carried a small folder. Lauren greeted him with her perfect smile. "Can I help you?" "Yes, ma'am," he said, flashing his badge briefly. "Just a few quick questions about the fire for record verification." She led him inside. Nervous but polite. I stayed quiet, watching from the corner as he looked around. When he left, he slipped a small note into my hand. "Meet me tomorrow at 10 a.m. in town. Don't tell anyone." My pulse quickened. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't think. I sat by the window again, staring at the reflection of my own tired face. How had my son, the boy I'd carried, raised, loved more than life itself, become this man? When I heard footsteps again, I froze. Michael stood in the doorway, watching me. His face calm. "Too calm, Mom," he said softly. "You've been quiet lately. Everything okay?" I smiled weakly. "Just tired." He stepped closer. "You know I love you, right?" I nodded, forcing a smile. Of course, he smiled back, that same practiced hollow smile, and left the room. But as I watched him walk away, I realized something chilling. He wasn't just protecting himself anymore, he was watching me. And the way he locked his office door that night told me he already knew. The morning felt wrong before I even opened my eyes. The air in the room was heavy, like someone had been standing there just a moment before I woke. The door that I always kept half open was now completely closed, and the faint smell of Michael's cologne lingered in the air. I sat up slowly. My heart was already racing, but I tried to steady it. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I'd imagined it. But deep down, I knew better. He knew. The night before, I'd been so careful, every step measured, every paper returned to its place. But maybe I hadn't been careful enough. I got dressed, trying to quiet my shaking hands, and stepped into the kitchen. Michael sat at the counter with a mug of coffee, scrolling through his phone. His tone was casual to casual. "Morning, Mom." "Morning," I replied, watching his face carefully. He looked up, smiled, the same smile I'd once trusted more than anyone's in the world. But now, every flicker of it felt like a mask. "How do you sleep?" he asked. "Fine," I said softly. "You?" He shrugged. "Didn't sleep much. Been thinking about some financial stuff." I nodded, pretending not to know. "Anything serious?" He gave a low chuckle. "Nothing I can't handle." But then he added, too smoothly, "You've always been curious, though. Haven't you? You used to tell me everything had to make sense." My pulse stopped. It wasn't a question. It was a warning. I stirred my tea slowly, pretending not to notice the shift in his tone. "Well," I said gently, "some things never change." He leaned forward, elbows on the counter, studying me. His eyes, the same green as mine, were calm but sharp. "Mom," he said softly, "you've been through a lot. Sometimes trauma makes people imagine things, confuse details. You know what I mean?" I met his gaze. I'm not confused, I said. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The sound of the refrigerator filled the silence like background static in a thriller. Then he smiled again, fake, plastic, deliberate. I know, I just worry about you. He took his cup and walked away, the moment he turned his back. My chest caved in. My hands trembled. He was testing me, waiting to see how much I knew. And that meant one thing, I didn't have much time. By 10 a.m. I left for my meeting with Detective Ramirez. We met at a quiet diner off Highway 22. He was already there, sitting in the corner booth with 2 coffees and that familiar, unreadable look of his. Grace, he said softly. You look exhausted. I haven't slept much, I admitted. He slid a manila folder across the table. You were right. Inside were photos, printouts, copies of Michael's financial statements, the reduced insurance policy, and my breath caught when I saw the last page. It was a fire investigation report. Under cause, it read, accelerant detected near kitchen floor, meaning the fire wasn't accidental. I pressed my hand against my mouth. So it's confirmed, Ramirez nodded grimly. I've seen plenty of insurance scams, but this one, it's personal. He did it clean, no fingerprints, no traces, but not clean enough. He used your home equity insurance to file an early withdrawal. The payment was routed to his private account 2 days after the fire. I closed my eyes, feeling tears build behind them. He used me, he nodded again. And now that he knows you found something, he'll panic. Be careful, Grace, he's desperate. I leaned forward. I don't want revenge, I said quietly. I just want him to face what he's done, to see himself. Ramirez looked at me like he understood more than he said. Then we'll do this the right way. When I returned home that afternoon, the house felt colder. Lauren was gone. She'd taken the kids to her sister's. Only Michael's car sat in the driveway. Inside, the air smelled faintly of gasoline. He was sitting on the couch, hands clasped, staring at the floor. When he looked up, his eyes were bloodshot, like he hadn't slept at all. Where were you? He asked. I needed some air, I said evenly. He nodded slowly. You've been going through my things. I froze. What? Don't play dumb, Mom. His voice sharpened. You went into my office. I said nothing. He stood up, running a hand through his hair. You don't get it, do you? I didn't have a choice. The debt, the pressure, I just needed to fix it before everything fell apart. You burned my home, I said quietly. You burned the life I built for you. He flinched, just slightly. It wasn't supposed to go that far. It was supposed to be controlled, small. I thought I could contain it. The fire spread faster than I expected. The words made me sick. Do you even hear yourself? I whispered. You planned it. He looked at me, his voice breaking. I didn't mean for you to be there that night. I stared at him. But I was. He took a shaky breath, stepping closer. I can fix this. We'll say it was a wiring issue. I'll make some calls. I stepped back. Don't. For the first time in his life, he stopped when I said that. He stared at me, realizing something he hadn't seen before, that I wasn't afraid of him anymore. I reached for my bag and took out a small voice recorder. Pressed play. His own voice filled the room. I didn't mean for you to be there that night. He froze. I met with Detective Ramirez this morning, I said calmly. He has everything, the policy, the bank records, your emails. I'm not covering for you this time, Michael. He stared at me like a stranger. You'd ruin your own son? I took a slow breath. No, you did that yourself. The silence stretched long and painful. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, you don't understand. They'll come after me, Mom. The people I owe, I'm sorry, I said softly. I can't save you this time. He sank onto the couch, his face in his hands. I stood there for a long moment, watching the boy I once raised vanish into the man he'd become, and in that silence, I realized something heartbreaking. The fire didn't destroy my home. It destroyed my illusion. That night, as I packed my things to leave, he came to my door. His voice was quiet, broken. Where will you go? I looked at him one last time. Someplace where the truth doesn't burn. He didn't answer. When I walked out, the air was cold, but it felt clean. For the first time since the fire, I could breathe. As I drove away, I saw police lights turning onto the street in my rearview mirror. I didn't look back, because sometimes justice isn't about punishment. It's about peace, and that peace was finally mine. The first thing I noticed when I woke up that morning was the quiet. It wasn't the kind of silence that comes from loneliness. It was the kind that follows a storm. The kind that tells you it's finally over. It had been 3 months since that night. 3 months since the sirens, the flashing lights, the cold look in Michael's eyes as they led him away. 3 months since I walked away from everything that used to define me, my home, my family, my past. Now, I lived in a small cottage by Lake Windermere, about 2 hours from the city. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The walls smelled faintly of pine, and the windows looked out over the still water that caught the first light of dawn like glass. I made my coffee slowly, listening to the kettle whistle. Every sound mattered here, the creak of the floorboards, the birds outside, the soft hum of life continuing. After years of chaos, peace felt foreign. Almost fragile, I sat by the window with my coffee and the stack of mail I'd been avoiding. Most of it was bills and advertisements. But at the bottom of the pile was a small, plain envelope, no return address, just my name, written in Michael's handwriting. My heart stopped for a moment. I turned it over in my hands, hesitating. Then, finally, I opened it. Mom, I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, and I don't expect you to. The police told me you didn't press extra charges, you only gave them what they asked for. You could have destroyed me completely, but you didn't. That's what makes this harder. I don't deserve the mercy you gave me. I've been in a counseling program here in the facility. They call it restorative reflection. We write about what we did and who we hurt. Every time I write your name, my hands shake. Because you were the one person who always believed I could be better. I know I set the fire. I know I ruined everything. But the worst thing I destroyed was the trust you had in me. If there's a way back from that, I'll spend my life trying to find it. Michael, by the time I finished reading, my coffee was cold. Tears had soaked the page, blurring the ink. I didn't hate him anymore. The anger had burned itself out long before this letter arrived. What remained was sorrow, deep, aching sorrow for the boy he used to be, and for the woman who kept pretending he still was. I folded the letter carefully and set it on the table beside a small silver box. Inside that box were the things I'd saved from the fire, a charred photo of Michael as a child, a ring that had survived the flames, and a key that no longer opened any door. I kept them not as reminders of loss, but as proof that even from ashes, something can remain. That evening, I walked down to the lake. The sky was painted in soft gold and lavender, the kind of sunset you don't talk through. You just feel it. The water was perfectly still, reflecting the world upside down. I carried the letter with me. As I stood at the edge, a breeze moved across the surface, rippling the reflection, just enough to distort the image. And I thought, that's life. No picture stays still forever. I read the letter one last time, then folded it neatly and set it in a small paper boat I'd made from an old newspaper page. I lit the edge with a match and placed it on the water. The flame caught quickly, spreading across the tiny boat until it glowed like a star drifting away from me. I watched it until it sank, the light fading into the dark surface of the lake. When it was gone, I whispered softly, I forgive you. The wind carried my words away, but I knew they would find him somehow. Later that night, I sat at my desk writing, not in a diary but in a letter to myself. Something to remember who I'd become. Asterisk, you survived what you thought would end you. You stood in front of the fire and didn't let it take your soul. You learned that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's release. You lost a home but found yourself. Truth didn't destroy you. It set you free. Asterisk, I sealed the letter and placed it beside the silver box outside. Rain began to fall, soft, steady, cleansing. The scent of it drifted through the open window. I closed my eyes and smiled. For the first time in years, I didn't feel haunted. I felt whole. A week later, I got a call from Detective Ramirez. His voice was warm, steady as ever. Grace, I thought you should know. Michael's accepted a plea deal. He'll be in a rehabilitation program for 3 years. He mentioned you in court today. What did he say? I asked quietly. He said, my mother didn't destroy me. She saved me from myself. I didn't reply. My throat tightened and my eyes filled again, but this time not from pain. Sometimes justice doesn't look like a gavel hitting wood. Sometimes it looks like a second chance. That night, I stepped outside again. The moon hung low over the lake, silver and calm. I could almost see my reflection in the water, not the woman who lost everything, but the woman who found something greater. Peace. And in that moment, I finally understood what the fire had been trying to teach me all along. That not everything destroyed needs to be rebuilt. Some things are meant to be let go. I turned off the porch light and stood there in the dark, feeling the wind against my face, and softly, I whispered to the night. My story doesn't end in the fire. It begins after it. Asterisk, she didn't seek revenge. She sought truth. And in the quiet truth, she found the strength that fire could never burn away. Asterisk, if this story touched your heart, don't leave without sharing your thoughts below. Have you ever trusted someone and been broken by them? Subscribe for more stories that remind us strength is born from pain. And remember, even after the fire, life can begin again.